Okay, now the section 2.1.3, right? Notations. And let's say for the notation, when you just like, for example, like a long number, like a 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 5, 0, 1, you know, like let's say really like big number, right? But this is really like huge number. When you type this is the notation used by R, right? So for example, like 2.3 e to the 16, right? So for example, so that means 2 to the, oops, I'm going to use the black. So 2 to the 1.3, right? And I think the blah, 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 and then e to the 16, right? E plus 16. So this is like e notation. So that means basically 2.13 multiplied by 10 to the power of 16. Okay? So for this, basically the equivalent notation for R is 2.13, right? And E plus 16. Okay? So that's the notation they use. Okay, so that's the section 2.13. Okay, for the like another example for like decimal like 0.0013, you know, for example like this, they are using the similar notation. Like for example, I think that in that case 2.13, I think E like minus this time is minus, for example, 0.8 or 0.7, right? So the minus means basically in this case is what? This equivalent is like 1.3, right? Multiply by 10 to the negative 8. Okay? So this is a typical mathematical formula that we use, right? However, this is the R's way to write the decimal number, right? Minus means 10 to the negative 8, right? Which is a very small number. So that's like a notation for the R, right? Okay, so now the next thing is section 2.2. Okay, the section 2.2, the most important concept, right? Let me show you the book one more time. Let's see. Okay. Section 2.2, right? Let's see. Oh, you know what? I forgot to. Let's just review this equation. I think this is like important to go over, right? So let's just first talk about this notation. Okay, the second one. Okay, I think this is kind of important. I forgot to go over this. Okay, the first I think, okay, so the equation is, if you're in the book, right? 5 the power of 3 multiplied by 6 minus 2, right? And divided by 61 minus 3 plus 4, right? I mean, this is like our mathematical equation, right? But in Python, right? Okay, so this is like the equivalent way of writing, right? In R is what? So first 5 what to the 3, right? So this is the exponential, right? 3, right? Oops, sorry. In Python, it's not really same thing. Not the Python, sorry. It's the R. 5. This is power to the 3, right? And then this is the multiply, right? This is the multiplications. And then this is the same. 6 minus 2, right? And divided. So basically, since this is like a multiplication, what will happen is this will be computed first, right? And then 6 minus 2 will be computed, right? And then this 2 will be multiplied, right? So that's the result. And then, so this is a division, right? Division. So this is a division, right? And then now this has to be computed. So 61 minus 3 plus 4, right? So 61 minus 3 plus 4. But if you put this way, the problem is since this division, right, has higher priority than the negative, right? So what will happen is this whole thing will be divided by 61, right? This is something that you don't want because you need to first compute this minus and plus, right? The whole thing will be divided. I mean, we'll divide this this value, right? So what you need is parentheses. So you have to put the parentheses. Okay, so that means this whole thing will be divided by this result, the 61 minus 3 plus 4. Okay, so that this is R's way, and this is like, you know, when you take your math class, this is what we usually write, right? But anyway.
How are you dividing all of it though? Like, what are you gonna type in?
You type this. Do you want to see the example?
For no, I see it, but for like the dividing part is where I'm confused.
A divide part is just slash, just like this, right? Yeah. So we divide like 14 divided by 6 plus 5.
Okay.
Okay. So now, you know, maybe we can just type. Maybe here, since this is section 2.1. Okay, so 5, right? And then multiply by, oops. And parenthesis 6 minus 2, right? And divide, so this is a division, right? And then parenthesis. When you have an open parenthesis, you must do close, right? You must have the close parenthesis. And I believe the number was a 61 minus 3, right? And then plus 4. Okay? And then run. Okay, so that's the right answer. Okay? And by the way, okay. Before we move to section 2.2, the assigning object, which is very important, the chapter, I like to show you one thing. So for example, in the rdocumentation.org, right? Or I mean, you can Google search, you can say R function log or log function in R, right? So this is like log functions. And then they explain about this log function, but if you look at the arguments, right? Arguments. Basically, the arguments is this, right? So when you look at the arguments, so this is the arguments, right? So this is the arguments. So basically the inputs, input to the functions, that's the argument, right? The argument is x. X is a numeric or complex vector. We're gonna learn about the vector, you know. And then, so you have to put the x and base. If you decide to use the argument name, I think you have to provide x or the base. Or, yeah, so if you decide to use the argument name, then you have to use x and base. Or, just you don't have to really use this argument name, just like this. So either this or this, okay? Now, okay, so now the section 2.2, assigning an object. You know what the thing is, it's already 11:32. I'm so used to the quota system, right? Which usually 2 hours, and I think we only have like what, about 10 minutes. Okay. Okay. Now I'm gonna stop here. Okay. So I'm done with this section up to section 2.1.3, right? And then this is gonna be my next lecture. Okay. Meanwhile, please go to the Blackboard right now. Okay. Please go to Blackboard. And then log in, right? Please log into your Blackboard. And then if you go to the Blackboard, there is exam and quizzes, right? There's exam and quizzes. Okay, so, okay, by the way, I'm done with this, okay, you know what? Okay, so just go to the exam and quizzes. And then there is, okay, now it's hidden. I have to make it available. Edit test options. And available to students, yes. And when is it due? What time is it now? It's 11:35. So I'll give you till like 12. Maybe just 12. You know, maybe 1 extra hour. I don't know. Let's see. By noon.
I don't see anything.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Just wait. Okay, now you will see the quiz. Go to the exam and quizzes directory and then take the quiz, so and begin, right? Okay, now the page 21 of the book on R, sorry, it's the book of R. And exercise 2.1, problem A. Okay? And let's see.
It says, wait, what?
Okay, now, so if you go to this this book of R, I'll show you the problem. So at the end of the chapter 2, there is an exercise problem, right? Exercise 2.1, right? And by the way, sometimes for the attendance quiz, this attendance quiz will from this exercise problem, or I'm going to make my own problem. So not always the quiz problem will from this exercise, but for today, I want you to solve problem number 1 and basically problem number 2. Okay, now, using R, to verify that this, so you have to write this in R, right? Using RStudio. And then when A is 2.3, right? This A, right? Oops. Right? This A is 2.3, right? So when you run this in R, right? Do you get 29.50556? So please test using R. And if it turns out to be 29.50556, right? And your answer, oops, where is it? Okay, your answer will be true, right? If it's not, if you ends up getting something different, right? Right? Something like 29 is something then, like for example, if you got 31, then your answer will be false. Please verify with R. So that's a true and false. And for the chapter 2, exercise problem B, right? So which of the following squares -4 and add to the result? So this is problem 1, 2, 3, 4, right? You choose, so this is your problem. And then, let me finish. Okay, and then choose, this is prop 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? So you have to select one. So here's the problem. And select one of the answer. Okay, you have about, okay, so I'll give you a couple of minutes and do the attendance quiz right now. Okay, so for the R, right? For the R, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, by the way, the A is 2.3, right? So this is something that I'm going to do. You know, if you want to use R, and like 6 multiplied by, it's 2.3, right? 2.3 and plus 42, right? And then it's divided by, right? Just in case, okay? By the way, the power, now I just put the parenthesis in case. The 3 power, right? 4.2 minus 3.62, right? So I'm gonna put the parenthesis, and then what? 4.2. By the way, this 4.2 minus 3.62 is, that's exponential value, right? It's not like a 3 power in a 4.2 minus 3.62, right? So what I mean is 4.2 minus, okay, it's not like this. No, it's not like this, right? It's like 4.2 minus 3.62, right? And then close parenthesis. Then another one. Okay. So let's just verify that I will get 29, right? Something like that. So okay, by the way, I'm going to stop recording my lecture.